We'll be discussing our long-range plan and finances around possible bond issue. This aligns to our CSIP on Board of Education governments and long-range facilities. Recommend action to Board of Education approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion? Debbie, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. We are in open session.
Today we brought Rick Blevins from Stiefel to talk about the long-range facilities and debt service for the board and the district. And so with that, I will turn the governance and the long-range facilities portion of the meeting over to you, Mr. Blevins.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of being here. Dr. Hardy and the board for allowing me to come in and speak. I know it's an 80-degree day in October, so I cut my presentation down to 2 hours so that we can get out of here sooner. Now, I just want, the board asked if I would come and just give some details of really 3 things I want to focus on today. Number 1 is, what is a debt service levy? How does it work for a school district, not just Owensville, but the state of Missouri? Number 2, how do we determine the amount that we tell the district? We want to make sure that we do not raise taxes, that we keep the debt service levy where it's currently at, so we do it on very conservative estimates. And then again, the last thing is the conservative approach that we have as we want to ensure that the district keeps their promise in regards to maintaining that 63-cent debt service levy. Real quick, who we are, we're a financial service provider. We work with over 150 school districts in the state, doing the same thing that we do here for Owensville. We do some long-range planning, structuring of debt, and then price the bonds on pricing day. So just real quick what we do. Let's see, go on here. This is a quick snapshot. I think you all have all of the presentation in your hands so you can follow it. We do have it on the big screen, maybe a little hard to see. This is just a snapshot of your existing debt. Now I'm going to talk briefly what a debt service levy is, because some people may or may not know. A debt service levy is what I call bricks and mortar. It's designed to pay for districts' construction, whether it's new construction, renovations, remodels, deferred maintenance. It's for big capital project plans. There is a separate levy. It's a complete separate account from your operating levy that the district has that makes those debt service payments. That debt service levy, like I said, is only for bricks and mortar. It is completely separate from your operating levy, which I call kit money, right? Salaries, benefits, educational supplies, technologies, those type of things are in your operating, which can also fund over your capital project fund. But your debt service fund is strictly designed for bricks and mortar. Now, people say, I always use this analogy when we talk about the debt service fund. Well, it's not good to be in debt. So, in Missouri, it's a little bit different. We do not go to ballot initiatives to approve projects. We have to approve levies, okay? So, over the year, the Owensville School, the Gasconade County Owensville community has approved the 67-cent debt service levy. And I don't know how many years that's been in place, quite some time. You've had 67 cents your debt service levy. And what that does is that pays for existing debt that you currently have, which right now is $6.1 million and change. And then we layer that in, and I'll talk about how we structure that in a minute, for future debt. And you say, well, what does that look like? The reason that we try to keep a 67-cent levy is because we're not just focused on the next issue. We want to know what this looks like for Owensville, for the Gasconade County R2 School District, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, and bond issues in 2090. So this school district will be here longer than all of us, right? This is about not just us or our kids or our grandkids. This is about our great-grandkids and our great-great-grandkids as they get to go to school here. This is here forever. And so we structure a debt service levy, similar to like we do across the state, to not let that go away, but not raise it. So the constituents approved the 67 cents and said, here's what it is, take care of the facilities that we have, build facilities that we need to ensure that our students continue to have quality learning spaces. Not just for now, but for years to come. Because as you can imagine, if you ever pay off your debt, unlike our house, it's great when we pay off our house, right? But it doesn't matter to the next people that buy our house whether we owed on it or not. That's not the case for the school district. The school district is focused on maintaining quality facilities and educational spaces for the next 100 years, 150 years. So that debt service levy is there really to stay in place, to take care of the bricks and mortar so that we do not have to use operating dollars, quote, kid dollars, for construction. Number one, you can't do that. You can if you have the money. There's only a couple school districts in the state of Missouri that do that, and they are super wealthy school districts that have huge AD per pupil, right? Most districts across the state use some sort of debt service levy to take care of those funds. If not, then you're actually having to look at doing that at your operating, and then that cuts potential expenses out of there. So now you're looking at staffing, because 80% of your operating budget is from staffing. So we don't want to use kid money to take care of our facilities if we don't have to. Now, this is your existing debt again, $6.1 million. You have two types of bonding capacity. Number one is affordability, what the district can afford with 67 cents. The second one is your constitutional bonding capacity, which what's the maximum amount the state will allow. The maximum amount the state will let you allow to borrow is 15% of your assessed value. That's very stringent. Most states across the country let you borrow much more. Missouri does not. So it's very, very low. You can see currently your constitutional bonding capacity is almost 28 million. And you only have 6.1 million outstanding. So very, very, very little debt compared to what the constitutional bonding capacity is. Now we say, what has the district done? What has your Board of Education done over the past several years to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars? One of the things that we've done, that they've done, is done refundings, just kind of like we refund our house. When the market is in a position to take outstanding debt and go refund it or refinance it, the district has hopped on that. And you can see, since 2003, over the last 20 years, the district has saved $2.4 million and change in taxpayers' dollars by going out and refinancing outstanding debt. So they've done a very, very nice job of making sure that they're trying to save every penny they can when possible. We've worked with them on most of these. We will continue monitoring debt each and every year when it's callable, and if the market conditions are right, we will continue to save dollars. All the scenarios that I'm getting ready to show you have not included any potential refundings. We want to look at worst case scenario when we're looking at this. So no refundings are built into any of the scenarios that we're going to show. But as you can see, the district saved several $1 million in refundings by doing that. Now I know you're looking at this one, are you crazy? This is nuts. So I won't go into detail. I just wanted to do a little bit of what we call a cash flow analysis. So when I talk to you about, okay, why can we do what? Now, most of you know the district ran $15 million no tax increase bond issue last April. When I talk about the affordability capacity, that has now increased to $20 million with the same debt service levy at the 67 cents. You say, how did that happen? Number one, you're paying more debt off in the last year. And number two, your assessed value grows, which you can see assessed value creates fund balances. Because of that levy that you have there, every year you get a little growth and your assessed value generates more dollars to your revenue stream to allowing for additional projects. Now you say, oh, that's great. We've got potential, if the board so chooses, to go to $20 million, if they decide to put an initiative on in April. That's that many more projects. Well, unfortunately, it may be some, I'm not sure. But I will tell you that construction inflation, I don't think this is a secret to anyone right now, is running around 14.5%. So every year you don't do a project, currently it's a 14.5% increase for the next year. So even though the projects were not passed last April, they will have gone up in cost significantly if you continue moving forward and are allowed to do that. So, and that's a question we're going to talk about here in a minute, is about construction inflation as well. But real quick, this just gives you a quick idea on the growth rate of what you've had the last few years. If you go down to 2024, which is the last reassessment year, that's tax year 23, you grew about 2.64%, significantly over that the past few years. There's your 67-cent levy. If you look in the right, there's your fund balance. That's what I want you to focus on. The district currently going to have about 2.6, almost 2.7 million in their debt service fund balance. Now, why is that important? Every year, your Board of Education sets a tax rate. Every year, you have a Form C calculation that sets the debt service tax rate, the 67 cents. Our job is to make sure when you go out and issue debt, is to keep that fund balance in what we call the sweet spot. And the reason is if there's not enough fund balance, you can't pay your bills. I'm probably going to get a phone call. Okay? If you have too much fund balance, it automatically rolls down your Form C calculation. Now, why is that a problem? Because you've, number one, got outstanding debt. Number two, it will impact any future issues. Now, I will tell you, back to what a debt service levy is, people say, well, why don't you pay it off? If you pay it off and you lose that levy's gone. The board does not have the ability to raise that levy back up. It takes a vote of the people. So I will tell you this, and I will give you the exact date because I don't have it. Tax increase initiatives are not very successful. That's just the way it is. Okay? Once you roll back your levy, to run a 60-some cent levy to try to get a project built is probably going to be very challenging. It is across the state. If you look at historical data, the no tax rate increase obviously is much more successful than a tax rate increase. Okay? So we try to manage your levy to keep about 1 to 2 year fund balance in your debt service levy to make sure the 67 cents is in place. Again, not only for the next bond issue, but for bond issues 100 years from now, to make sure that the kids here in Owensville continue to have those learning spaces. So that's how that's structured. And that's why the districts across the state work very hard to protect the debt service levy that the constituents have passed to make sure they take care of kids for future years down the road. We have built in this $20 million hypothetical. I don't know where markets are going to be in April or May. If I knew that, we could all retire. But we have built in a big cushion because we want to make sure that you can run what we're telling you running. So we've built in an interest rate cushion on these projections. You can see your fund balances go from about 2.6 to 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, and then in 2028 they already start increasing again. That's why we structure it this way. A district the size of Gasconade County R2 that has over 1 million square foot under roof needs some type of projects, actually usually a lot more than what they can run, right? That's across the state. Every 5 to 7 years. So we've structured your debt to about every 5 to 7 years. You can run what we call a fairly significant no tax rate increase for either new construction or renovations. As we know, learning spaces change every year, right? We are evolving as education, and learning spaces change. You've also got deferred maintenance projects, roofing, HVAC, flooring, asphalt, paving, outdoor facilities. You are constantly having to do, just like we do on our homes, maintenance updates. Those are huge expenses when you're talking about a district the size of Owensville. They cannot just come strictly out of your operating, right? Kid dollars, you start doing $1 million projects on roofs and HVACs out of your operating, that's going to impact your kid dollars. So a lot of districts utilize their debt service to also get some additional resources to take care of some of those big projects so that we keep money in classrooms. All right? So again, if you ran a $20 million issue in April of 2024, or 2024, hypothetically, you in about 5 to 7 years, you can see on the growth model, we've got 2.5% built in, which is very conservative. We think you'll grow probably closer to 3 or 4. but we want to make sure that we're very conservative on the growth rate. So depending on that growth rate over the next few years, you could run potentially another bond issue 5 to 7 years from now with your 67-cent levy. And we try to structure it that way with districts across the state because of the facility needs that they have. All right? Now, this is a summary of revenue projections. I'm not going to spend much time on this. You can look at it, you have it. This just tells us what revenue has been driving in Fund 3. So the numbers on the prior page that I had, you can see these are the numbers that I get. So we know what's going in your Fund 3 every year. So obviously take your revenues compared to your debt service payments and get that fund balance to where it needs to be. Now, this is a bonding capacity recapture schedule. So this is what I was talking about earlier. You have two types of capacities, what you can afford and what your constitutional bonding capacity is. 15% of your assessed value. So you can see in 2024, if you ran $20 million on your hypothetical next to last column, you still have $7.8 million in constitutional bonding capacity. So, long story short, you are almost $8 million below what your constitutional bonding capacity is. So what does that mean? If your 67 cents was maybe 93 cents, you might be able to run 28 million, 27.8. But it's not. So relatively speaking, you're still well below your constitutional bonding capacity if the board were to pass, if the community were to pass a $20 million issue. So still very low debt ratio. You can see your capacity quickly increases on the right. So if you take, let's say, let's just go 6 years out to 2030. The district with very low AV growth, 2.5% AV growth, is already in a position to potentially run another $10 to $12 million no tax increase bond issue at very low growth and still have the $7 million in capacity. Okay? As you can see, let's say we go out 7 years, 8 years, now you're looking at $15 million or so no tax increase capacity. And that's what we try to keep you structured on, so that you can continue doing projects out of your debt service fund and not impact your operating and not raise taxes. Okay. So, I'll be happy to answer questions when I'm done if anyone has any, but these are some that I get across the state when I give this presentation from several of our community members that say, okay, what about this? So I'm just going to go through a few of them. You know, I get the question, hey, what are current interest rates? We all know the market's moved significantly over the last 24 months. You are a very high-rated school district. You're an A-plus rated school district through Standard & Poor. What that means is that rating agency comes in each year when you do an issue and does a very thorough review of your school district's policies, procedures, fund balances, finances. It goes depth of your community to see what your average household income is, what your assessed values have done, and they also take a very holistic look at your community. It always goes very well. You're an A-plus rated school district, which is probably the top 25% of the state. What that means is it's highly rated bonds, highly rated paper. So we go out and price your bonds. Investors want them because they're very high rated, low risk, which means they'll pay up for them, which drives down your interest rates. Okay, so that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing for your school district and the work that they've done over the past. So current interest rates now, it'll be different tomorrow because the market's been like this lately. But on a school district with an A-plus rating, you're looking at a true interest cost probably anywhere between right now, if we were pricing today, probably a $450 to a $480. Now, I'm older than most people in this room, so I'll tell you that historically speaking, that's extremely low. It's still a very good borrowing environment. I will also tell you, I wish I could go borrow a car or a home right now for the upper 4s or 5s, because as most of you know, that's probably closer to 7 or 8. But because it is such high quality paper, and because you're such a highly rated school district, you'll get very good interest rates. Second question, how are bonds structured? I mentioned that quickly. These are 20-year bonds. So you'll pay them off in 20 years. We typically have between an 8 to 10-year call, which allows the district to go back in and refund that, restructure it, or refinance it. Gives the district availability to save dollars like we talked about earlier when we saved over $2.4 million. So it's a 20-year structure. Is this a good time to borrow and build? I get that question all the time. And my answer to that is yesterday was a better day to build than today because of construction inflation. And what I tell people in districts all the time, if you can afford to build, build. Because it's not going to be any cheaper next year or the following or the following. I was just working with another district not far from here that's having the same conversation, when do we go next? And we looked at a middle school that they built in 2000 and I believe it was 8. Don't quote me on it, but I think it was 6 or 8. They built a middle school for $22 million. That same square footage middle school today would be about $55 million. So, you know, my answer to that always is, or not my answer, my recommendation always is that building is cheaper today than it will be tomorrow. And we've never seen building costs go down. I work with a lot of architects and construction management because of what we do, because we get this question a lot. And right now it's running about 14.5%. And their goal is to get it in the single digits. And like they said, it never goes down. You don't see construction costs go down. If you can level them out or get smaller increases, maybe up to CPI, like 6.5% like we have this year, that's a win for them, but they have not been able to tailor that to this point. So, how do we ensure we don't raise taxes? If someone says, how do you tell me that the 67 cents is going to do it? How conservative have you been on your assumptions? Number one, I told you we put interest rate cushion in. We've got 5% coupons built in, so if you did not get the 2.5% AV growth, you would be okay. It may impact when you can go the next time and how soon, but it would have to see some significant economic downturns to ever be in a position to the point, like I think I told the board, you'd be worried about more than just your bond ratings. So it's very conservative interest rate cushion. Second is how we structure the bonds. We do them on these wrap structures. You got great fund balances you currently have. We anticipate those fund balances staying in good shape even with the 2.5% AV growth. And there's the third one, the assessed value growth, 2.5%. I'm going to show you here in a minute, I think, something that puts that in a much better perspective on my last slide, or next to last slide, in just a second. Another big question we have, will the tax rate go down if the bond issue fails? The answer is no. Now, will it eventually? Yes. But the answer initially is no, because you still have $6 million outstanding, right? We will accelerate that debt to pay it off quicker, because that's the most advantageous for the board. At least that'd be my recommendation. The board, that'd be their decision. And so it would be in place for some time because you still have obviously outstanding debt. Now, back to what I talked about earlier. If you ever got to the point that the debt service levy started dropping because you were paying off all your debt, the challenge is now, the next time that the district needed a building project and needed debt service funds to do that, which would be the case, there would have to be a significant tax rate increase to get anything done. Okay? So, you know, people tell me, well, if you just didn't pass, the taxes go down. Yeah, they will, eventually, someday, down the road after you pay off your debt. But you're also in a position that you're making decisions for kiddos that aren't even here yet, right? You're making decisions for kiddos 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and significant impacts to your community here in Owensville. You know, I try to come and just give information. Hey, let me tell you this, a grain of salt. I pay my bills by these things getting passed across the state. So, you know, I'm very transparent. But I will also tell you I'm a public education advocate. I always have been. I have retired parents and public educators, and I can go down the road. And so it's sometimes hard for me to just give data. But I will say this. It is important that this school district, and most of you will probably agree with this, and it's just the case across the state of Missouri. In the school district I live in, I want our schools to thrive because I want my community to thrive. And I know in my community, the school district is the heartbeat of that community. They're not only the heartbeat, they're also the economic driver of that community. Because I will tell you, I have lived in different communities across the state, and it may be different here in Owensville, but I bet that it's not. That people live here, work here, and businesses are here because you have quality school districts. And if you didn't have quality school districts, that would not be the case. This community would not thrive like it has. So, when people ask me, I've got 5 boys, 4 of them out of the house in college, 1 of them still at home, unfortunately. And I will tell you, people say, well, when your last kid's gone, you're still paying school tax. Yeah, I am. And I'll be happy to do it because the other kiddos in my community and the businesses and everything that goes into play in the community I live in thrives on the success of that school district. Okay, done. I'll throw that hat off. I just always have to share that because I am passionate about that when it talks about the taxes. Next thing, last thing, I'm moving on. How does your tax levy compare to other districts across the state? I get that all the time. Okay, so what are we paying compared to what others are paying? So the average tax levy, now this is for 2022, 2023 data is not out yet. That's the 2022-23 school year. The 23-24 school year that we're in, that data is not out from DESA yet. The average tax levy is just under 415. I'm sorry, yeah, just under 415. Yours is 385. So your tax levy, and I'm saying total, operating on 1, 2, 3, 4, which is what we pay, right? We pay total tax levy, is about 30 cents less than the state average. So, knowing what I know about Gasconade County R2, you're probably getting a very good bang for the buck on your tax rates from your facility standpoint, from your educational standpoint, your extracurricular standpoint. So you're about 30 cents less average rate, tax rate. Your taxpayers are paying about 30 cents less than what the average school district, average tax rate is for school districts across the state. So back to how conservative am I being on your growth rate to pay these bonds back? I'm about done, I promise. Total assessed value has increased nearly 80% over the past 20 years. Okay? So we look at historical data and say, what should we base the growth rate on to make sure we pay the bonds? The district assessed value would need to grow 32% over the next 20 years based upon the scenarios I showed you. So I think that's pretty conservative. You've grown 80 the past 20, you need 32% growth over the next 20. You've grown 17 the past 3. So with that said, that 80%, we know how the economy goes, it ebbs and flows. That's through a great recession back in 2008 to 2012. Then we saw an increase here the last few years. Typical economy, the way it runs up and down. So we have been very conservative and only estimate about 32% growth for the next 20 years to pay the bonds back. And lastly, this is back to your bond rating. You're an A+ rated school district from S&P. The last time you did a rating was in 15. Here's some highlights. You had a stable local tax and employment base supporting strong market values per capita. You had strong federal reserves, low debt burden with no future plans at that time. Again, the benefit of the rating is the district received more favorable rates on bond issuance, provides sense of security for investors, the district in a healthy financial position. The bottom line is lower interest rates because of that rating. There's a fund disclosure you can read that we're required by regulators to provide. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the Board of Education, from any of the folks here today, if you have any. Yeah, and that's, we never know. So that's why we go back to historical data, like I mentioned. We had that happen in 2008 during the Great Recession. That projection, this projection right here included that. Sorry. That projection here included that recession in 2008. So we kind of just look at historical data and say, through a Great Recession, ups and downs since 2000 and really 4, when we go back and look at this, we've seen about 80% growth of assessed values for the school district. So we are looking at 32% over the next 20. So for less than half is what we built in. So we've built in exactly what you're saying. If that was to happen over the next 5 years, like we said, these values kind of ebb and flow over 20 years, and so we've built in a very, very good cushion for that to happen. If it were to be below that, it wouldn't necessarily impact your the 20 million, but it might impact the next time you did a bond issue for how much and how long. So instead of maybe doing 8 million in 2028, it may be 2030 or 31 or 32 if you don't see the assessed value growth that we projected. Because remember, you do have fund balances that we built in of about $1.5 million in there. Did that answer your question? We try to be what I call conservatively real. Okay? And the point of that means is we don't want to come and tell a school district you can do 5 million when you can do 20, when you may have $30 million in projects, because like I mentioned earlier, projects continue to go higher and higher and higher expense-wise. But we also don't want to come in and say, hey, we're going to guess you at 80% AD growth like you did the last 20 years and tell you you can do all 28 million. So we want to be what we call conservatively realistic. Be very conservative with our approach, but also realistic so the district can get as many projects that they can get done now, so they don't cost more down the road. If you have any questions, at least from my end, if it's not related to the superintendent board, just get with Dr. Hardy and she can forward those to me and I'll try to get an answer for you. Does that work? Thank you very much for your time.
We appreciate you driving down and with us giving that explanation. This is an important part of our board governance and being well informed. Important part of being able to make thoughtful and aligned decisions. I appreciate everyone, and I'll give special thanks to the teachers and all the students for a love that. Just super excited to look at all the activities and things going on. I know we've got a legislative breakfast as well, and a great time for kids to showcase, and we definitely extend our thanks to them for giving us this afternoon. A beautiful day. We want to make sure everyone gets a chance to go out and enjoy it. So with that, the recommend action for the education adjourned. It is 2:37. I have a motion. I have a motion from Molly. Do I have a second? Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you much. Enjoy the day.